I want you to picture a loud celebration, like the loudest, most joyous celebration you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, just total, absolute sensory overload.
Exactly. Put yourself right in the middle of it. You're surrounded by this massive crowd of people.
Hmm.
The music is absolutely deafening, like vibrating through the ground.
Oh yeah, you can feel it in your chest.
Right, and everyone around you is dancing, they're clapping, and there's just this overwhelming collective feeling of total elation.
Because you're at a wedding procession.
Yeah, a massive public celebration of love. Two families coming together to build a shared future. Now hold that vivid, beautiful, chaotic image in your mind.
Okay.
Feel the energy of that crowd, and then in a fraction of a single second, shatter it.
Wow.
Completely shatter that image with a sudden, fatal gunshot.
Going from the absolute peak of human joy, surrounded by community and music, to the absolute depths of sudden fatal violence. I mean, it's an incredibly jarring transition to even contemplate.
It really is. Our brains just aren't wired to process that kind of immediate environmental whiplash.
No, they really aren't. It's too fast.
So today we are taking a deep dive into a very specific, highly tragic event that forces us to look at that exact kind of whiplash.
And I want to note right up front, we are dealing with a tragic true crime event today. So we are impartially reporting on the content provided in our sources.
Yes, exactly. We're not endorsing any viewpoints, just trying to convey the ideas contained in the original source material. And our source today comes from translated excerpts of a report titled "The Fatal Procession, a Wedding Day Tragedy."
Right. And our goal here is to move past just the simple sequence of events.
Yeah, our mission for this deep dive is to carefully reconstruct the timeline, examine the immediate aftermath, and most importantly, unpack the deeply unsettling motives here.
We really need to deeply explore how our most sacred social rituals, the very spaces where communities gather to feel safe, can sometimes be weaponized.
Okay, let's unpack this. The report details the murder of a 22-year-old groom.
So young.
I know, and this happened right in the middle of his barat. For anyone who might not be familiar with that specific term, the barat is the groom's wedding procession.
Yeah, which is a massive deal.
It is. I always think of it as this moving sensory overload parade. You have so much going on at once. Your eyes are darting everywhere. People are cheering. Fireworks might be going off.
You've got brass bands playing.
Exactly. It's a highly populated, incredibly dynamic event where the groom is the undisputed center of attention.
Right. He is the main focus of hundreds of people.
And in the middle of all of this overwhelming joy and distraction, the report notes that the groom was shot at close range. He died instantly, right there on the spot.
That is it's horrific. And the close-range nature of the shooting completely redefined how we have to look at the anatomy of this attack.
Wait, how so? What does the close range tell us?
Well, a close-range shot means the attacker had to infiltrate the innermost circle of the celebration.
Oh, right, because he wouldn't be alone.
Exactly. The groom in a barat is typically flanked by his absolute closest friends, his brothers, his immediate family. They are moving tightly around him, dancing, guarding him in a celebratory way.
So it's like a moving human shield almost.
Yeah. To get a clear close-range shot, the attacker had to physically push through that dense wall of celebration without raising any alarms at all.
It makes me think of like a magician's misdirection.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, like when you go to a magic show, the illusionist purposefully gets you to look at the flashing lights or the waving hands so you never register what the other hand is doing.
Right, they control your focus.
Exactly. The sheer volume and visual distraction of this celebration provided a perverse kind of camouflage for the shooter. The music is masking the sound of their approach.
And the dancing bodies are masking their physical movement.
Yes. Everyone is looking at the joy, everyone is completely focused on the groom, and while all of that positive attention is directed one way, the tragedy just sneaks right in through the side door.
Using the party itself as its cover. What's fascinating here is the chilling psychology required to execute a pre-planned, close-range shooting in the middle of a chaotic crowd.
Wait, pre-planned? They know it was planned in advance.
Yeah, the source material explicitly points out that this attack appears to have been pre-planned.
Wow. That takes a totally different level of nerve.
Absolutely. I mean, to walk into a loud, crowded space, navigate your way to the central figure of the entire event and pull the trigger requires an incredibly cold, calculated nerve.
They couldn't just wing it.
They had to study the route of the procession. They had to understand the timing, pinpointing exactly when the music would be loudest and the crowd would be most densely packed.
So they relied entirely on the fact that the festive atmosphere would leave people's guards completely down.
Exactly.
Well, the report states that sudden chaos and panic erupted in the crowd immediately following the gunshot, which, makes sense. You go from a loud party to absolute frantic terror in 1 second.
It's pure panic.
But wait, I have to stop here. If the shooter had to get so close, penetrating that inner circle of friends and family, how does someone pull a trigger and then just vanish?
It's a great question.
According to the initial information in the report, the main suspect, the person accused of planning and executing this murder, is a relative of the bride.
Right?
So how does a known family member, someone whose face is likely recognized by dozens of people in that crowd, simply slip away from a wedding where everyone knows everyone?
You really have to consider the physiological reality of the sudden chaos mentioned in the source.
Like how the body actually reacts.
Exactly. When a gunshot goes off inches away from a dense crowd with deafening music playing, the human brain doesn't instantly comprehend the threat.
Oh, sure. I guess you'd just be confused at first.
There's an auditory confusion.
Yeah.
Like, was that a firecracker? A speaker blowing out?
Oh, right.
And by the time the visual reality of the Groom falling actually registers, the human survival instinct takes over entirely. People do not stand still and look for a suspect.
No, of course not. They just run.
They scatter. They drop to the ground. They trample each other just to get away from the perceived center of the threat.
So the panic itself becomes the getaway vehicle.
In that first 30 to 60 seconds of pure adrenaline-fueled panic, nobody is taking attendance. Nobody is analyzing faces.
Wow.
The attacker leveraged the predictable, chaotic scatter of the crowd to slip away before the collective shock could wear off and before people could even begin to process who was standing right next to them.
That is just, it's terrifying.
It is. And this is why the source notes this event is very rare and terrifying. A wedding is fundamentally built on the foundation of communal safety. It is a space where you implicitly trust the people around you.
And a relative is supposed to be the ultimate safe harbor in that community. I mean, the bride's relative is traditionally viewed as a protector, right?
Absolutely.
A guardian of the family's well-being, and by extension, a guardian of the new union.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this absolute subversion of trust is why the police are intensely questioning the family and the witnesses right now.
Yeah, the report mentions that a murder case has been registered, raids are happening, and search operations are actively underway.
But the authorities aren't just looking for a random suspect on the street. The answers to how this could happen, who helped plan it, and where the suspect might be hiding are buried within the family tree itself.
Which makes the investigation incredibly difficult, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. The investigation is forced to navigate a highly complex, deeply entrenched web of familial loyalties, hidden secrets, and long-standing resentments.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Knowing that a relative committed the act and fled leaves us with a massive psychological void.
Right, the motive.
Yeah. We know the how the close-range shot masked by the procession. We know the who, the relative of the bride. But we have to look at the why.
Why do this at all?
Exactly. Why was the opposition to this union so absolute that it led to a public execution? The report outlines several deeply intertwined motives here.
And again, we're just conveying what the original source document outlines as the suspected motives.
Right. It mentions opposition to the type of union, specifically suspecting it to be a love marriage or an intercaste marriage. It also brings up historical family disputes or underlying enmity.
And finally, it ties the crime directly to the concept of honor or family prestige.
Looking at those motives, I start to see this not as a momentary crime of passion, but as the violent enforcement of a toxic inheritance.
That's a powerful way to frame it. The sociology behind those specific terms in the report, intercaste marriage and honor, carries an immense, almost crushing weight in certain contexts.
Because it's not just about the two individuals getting married, is it?
No, not at all. A family's prestige, their economic mobility, and their very identity in the community are inextricably tied to their marital alliances. Marriage is viewed as a critical structural pillar of the broader community.
Think of it like a rigid, ancient architectural blueprint that has been handed down through generations.
Okay, yeah.
This blueprint dictates exactly how the family structure is supposed to be built to keep the roof from caving in. It dictates who you can marry, what caste you must belong to, and how the family's social standing is maintained.
Right, it's all mapped out for you.
Exactly. Now, along come the bride and the 22-year-old groom. They are trying to build outside the approved lines of that blueprint. Because it is suspected to be a love marriage or an intercaste union, they're attempting to adapt the family structure to something modern, something based on individual choice.
And that causes huge friction.
Huge. Because the enforcers of that old blueprint in this case, the relative, do not possess the tools to adapt. When the new structure doesn't match the rigid historical blueprint, the enforcer resorts to absolute destruction rather than allowing the foundation to change.
The blueprint analogy perfectly captures the structural mechanics of caste and social prestige.
It really is a structural thing.
Yeah. An arranged marriage within the same caste is designed to preserve that specific blueprint. It consolidates resources, maintains social alliances, and signals to the broader community that the family is adhering to the established rules of survival.
It's about preserving the status quo.
Precisely. When a couple steps outside of that crossing caste lines for a love marriage, extremists within that system do not view it as a mere difference of opinion between generations.
How do they view it?
They view it as an existential threat to the family's entire social currency.
Which fundamentally changes the math of the crime. It is not a situation where the relative just disliked the groom's personality.
No, it's way deeper than that.
In the twisted logic of this toxic inheritance, the relative believes this union is actively destroying who they are as a family. They believe the marriage will bankrupt their social standing entirely.
To an extremist mindset, enforcing these unwritten, rigid rules, the preservation of the family's perceived honor holds a higher value than the literal lives of the individuals within the family.
Which is just so hard to wrap your head around.
It is. The source states that the relative was strictly against the marriage. And we have to understand the mechanics of that strictness. It stems from a deeply ingrained belief that social standing must be violently protected against internal rebellion.
Like they're stopping an infection.
Exactly. The attacker believes they are performing a necessary amputation to save the rest of the body from infection.
It is incredibly chilling to realize that a word like honor, a concept that we universally associate with integrity, respect, and moral uprightness, can be systematically twisted.
Twisted and weaponized.
Right, yeah.
Weaponized to justify walking up to a 22-year-old on the happiest day of his life and pulling a trigger.
This raises an important question about the terrifying power of societal labels and community enforcement.
Yeah.
How can the rigid definitions of caste and family prestige warp a person's morality so completely? The psychological reality is that the attacker likely did not look in the mirror and see a villain.
Wow, you're probably right. Through the warped, funhouse mirror of toxic honor, they fully believed that committing murder in front of dozens of witnesses was a justified, perhaps even heroic, defense of their family's historical standing.
They believed they were acting as the ultimate protector of the blueprint.
Exactly.
But the cost of that supposed protection is absolute generational devastation. I mean, we are looking at the elimination of a young man who is just starting his adult life.
It's truly heartbreaking.
And we are looking at a bride whose own blood relative meticulously orchestrated the murder of her partner. We are looking at two separate families and an entire overlapping community that are now permanently linked by profound trauma rather than a celebratory union.
The immediate police response is obviously focused on the logistics of a registered murder case. The search operations and the raids will eventually run their course. The legal system will process the event.
Right.
But the sociological fallout detailed in this report extends decades beyond the legal proceedings. The structural damage inflicted on that community's sense of safety is permanent.
So, what does this all mean? We started this deep dive by asking you to put yourself inside a joyous, loud, celebratory wedding procession, and then we shattered it.
We really did.
We have traced the tragic arc of a 22-year-old groom surrounded by love and music in his barat, who became the victim of premeditated, close-range, familial violence.
And we examined the brutal mechanics of the attack itself, seeing how the sheer volume and distraction of the celebration provided the perfect camouflage for the approach.
Yeah, and how the resulting panic provided the ultimate smokescreen for the escape.
We also unpacked the heavy, rigid sociological motives driving the attack, as presented in the source. We looked at the toxic inheritance of caste rules and the warped, weaponized concepts of honor that can completely subvert traditional roles.
Transforming a family member from a protector into an executioner,
Right.
it forces you to heavily reflect on the illusion of safety we often assume in our most public celebrated rituals. We inherently believe that because we are surrounded by family, because we are enveloped in a massive crowd of well-wishers, we are completely insulated from harm.
You'd think so, naturally.
But this story proves, in the most terrifying and public way possible, that the greatest dangers sometimes come from the closest ties. The threat wasn't lurking in a dark alley miles away. It was walking right alongside the procession, hiding in plain sight.
Building on the detail from the source, that this was a highly public event, and that witnesses from both the family and the broader community are currently being intensely questioned. Consider the long-term aftermath.
What happens next, you mean?
Exactly. When a community's most public, sacred celebration is weaponized to violently settle private resentments, what happens to the very concept of trust for the surviving family?
That's a haunting question.
How do the hundreds of witnesses who came out to sing, to dance, and to celebrate the building of a new foundation ever reconcile the fact that the person who brought a fatal gunshot into their joy was one of the architects of the family itself?